Before I share this story with you, I have one simple request. If you enjoy powerful life stories about love, betrayal, and lessons learned, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. These stories aren't just entertainment. They carry truths that might change the way you see relationships forever. Now let's begin. The sound of the bedroom door slamming was like a thunderclap in the silence of the house. Mark froze where he stood, the sting of his wife's words still vibrating in his chest. "Be a real man, Mark. Only then will we be close again." Her tone wasn't playful. It was laced with venom, sharp and cold. In one cruel sentence, she reduced years of love and sacrifice into nothing. He had walked into the room with hope, but walked out with a wound that cut deeper than he ever imagined. Mark stood frozen, his breath shallow, the echo of her words clanging in his head like cruel bells. Be a real man. He had come home early that night, arms full of groceries, planning to surprise Sarah with her favorite dinner. He imagined laughter, conversation, maybe even a quiet moment of closeness they hadn't shared in weeks. Instead, he got a door slammed in his face, and a sentence that tore through him like glass. His hands trembled as he set the grocery bags down on the counter. A tomato rolled across the floor, forgotten. His chest rose and fell rapidly, but no words left his lips. He couldn't even defend himself. What did she mean? Hadn't he already given everything? Mark thought of the long nights at the office, the projects he'd taken just to ensure their mortgage was paid, the weekends he sacrificed with friends so he could be present when she needed him, the countless times he'd sat awake until dawn, calming her fears and anxieties. And yet, here he was, told he wasn't enough. Sarah hadn't looked back as she walked away. Her eyes had been cold, distant, like she was speaking to a stranger. Mark leaned against the counter, staring at nothing, his heart sinking under the weight of humiliation. That one sentence replayed over and over until it carved itself into his soul. That night, sleep was a stranger. Mark lay on his back, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above him. Sarah's words repeated like a broken record in his mind. Be a real man. Be a real man. Each repetition felt heavier, pressing against his chest until he could hardly breathe. What did she mean? What version of man was she demanding? Was it the kind who barked orders and never showed weakness? The kind who drowned in silence, like his father, a man who never hugged, never comforted, never listened? Or did she mean something else entirely? Someone exciting, someone reckless, someone who wasn't him. He clenched his fists against the mattress, his jaw tight. He remembered every sacrifice he had made for her, sacrifices she never seemed to see. The promotions he turned down because Sarah feared moving away. The trips he cancelled because she insisted they needed to save money. The nights he stayed awake, whispering reassurances when she shook with anxiety. Wasn't that manhood? Wasn't that love? Mark turned his head, watching Sarah's silhouette beside him. She slept soundly, her back turned like a wall between them. Once that same woman had curled into his chest every night, whispering that he was her safe place. Now she wouldn't even face him. His throat tightened, tears pricking his eyes, though he fought them back. A single sentence had unraveled everything he believed about himself, everything he thought he had built. By morning, the house felt different, cold, heavy. The familiar scent of her lavender perfume lingered in the hallway. But beneath it was something else, sharp, musky, foreign. Mark froze. It wasn't his cologne. It belonged to someone else. At first, Mark tried to dismiss it. Maybe Sarah had hugged a colleague. Maybe she'd brushed past someone at work. The foreign scent clinging to her hair and clothes. He told himself it meant nothing, but denial only worked for so long. The signs began piling up. Small at first, then impossible to ignore. Sarah's late nights became routine. She used to call if she'd be home late, but now it was only a text. Working late. Don't wait up. Her phone, once casually left on the coffee table, was always clutched in her hand or placed face down beside her bed. And then there was the red dress. The one she hadn't worn in years. The one she used to wear when she wanted to feel beautiful for him. Suddenly, she wore it again, paired with lipstick he hadn't seen since their early days of dating. Mark noticed how she lingered in front of the mirror, how her eyes seemed brighter when she walked out the door, only to dim again when she returned home. Every time he reached out for her, she flinched. Every touch felt unwanted, every word of affection ignored. Mark's chest grew heavier with each passing day. He wanted to confront her, but fear paralyzed him. Fear of the truth he wasn't ready to hear. One rainy Thursday, the weight of suspicion became unbearable. Mark returned home early, soaked from the storm, only to find Sarah already gone. A single message blinked on his phone. Working late tonight, but her office door was ajar. Normally she kept it immaculate. Pens aligned, papers stacked. Tonight it was chaos. Half-drunk coffee cups, sticky notes scattered everywhere, the sharp scent of perfume still hanging in the air. And there on the desk lay a leather-bound notebook. Worn edges, pages slightly curled, the cover cracked with use. Mark stared at it, his stomach in knots. He knew it was her private space, her journal. He shouldn't open it. He shouldn't invade her world like this. But then her voice echoed in his mind, sharp and cold. Be a real man. His hand reached out, trembling. The need to know was stronger than the fear. Mark's fingers hovered above the leather cover, his pulse hammering in his ears. He knew he shouldn't do this. It was wrong, an invasion of privacy. But the silence of the room, the storm raging outside, and the echo of her cruel words pushed him forward. He opened the notebook. Sarah's handwriting sprawled across the page in graceful loops, letters he had once cherished in birthday cards and love notes. But here they carried none of that warmth. These words were colder, sharper. The first few pages were ordinary. Notes about work deadlines, reminders, small frustrations. But then, further in, the tone shifted. He makes me feel alive again. Mark froze. His heart skipped. He read the sentence again, hoping he had misunderstood. But the ink didn't lie. The words were there, pressed deep into the paper as though she had carved them into existence. Not like Mark. With him, I can breathe. With him, I laugh. With him, I feel free. The pen had cut into the page. The smudges showed where her hand had lingered, trembling as she wrote. Mark's vision blurred. He blinked rapidly, his throat tightening, but the next words only cut deeper. I can't keep pretending. The late nights with him feel like the only time I'm alive. His touch, his voice. It's everything I've been missing. Mark slammed the notebook shut for a moment, his chest heaving. But his hands betrayed him. He opened it again, needing to see more. Needing to know if it was as bad as his gut told him. Each line was a dagger, mentions of secret calls, of book club meetings that were nothing but lies, of his arms around me and his hands on my waist. The puzzle pieces clicked together in Mark's mind. Her sudden interest in late-night outings, the perfume, the red dress, the words that had shattered him only nights ago. This was no misunderstanding, no exaggeration. It was betrayal. Written in her own hand. Mark collapsed into her chair, the leather creaking under his weight. His hands covered his face as hot tears slipped through his fingers. The life he had built, the love he thought was unshakable, it was gone. Not stolen, not taken, but abandoned. The walls around him seemed to close in, the grey paint suffocating, the storm outside echoing the storm inside his chest. He didn't know how long he sat there. Seconds, hours. Time had no meaning. All that mattered was the ink, the confession, the undeniable truth. Then the front door creaked. Mark jerked upright, his heart leaping into his throat. Quickly he slammed the notebook shut and shoved it back into place. Forgot my charger. Sarah's voice rang out, casual, almost cheerful. Mark forced himself to stand. His legs trembled, his face stiff as he plastered on a smile. She stepped inside, cheeks pink from the autumn air. Or was it something else? Guilt? Excitement? You're home early, he said, voice steady though his insides burned. Her eyes flickered just for a second before she bent down to grab the charger from her desk. Busy day. I'll be late tonight, like I said. Her voice was too quick, too rehearsed. Mark nodded silently, watching her leave again. The door closed, the silence returned. But now the silence carried the weight of truth. That night, the house felt like a stage where two actors performed roles neither believed in anymore. Mark sat at the dining table, his plate untouched, fork idle. The lamp above cast a pale glow on the room, but all he could see was the notebook's words burned into his memory. Sarah walked in, heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She set her purse down, moving quickly, too quickly, as if speed could erase the guilt trailing behind her. "Long day," she muttered, avoiding his eyes. Mark studied her. The faint scent of unfamiliar cologne still clung to her clothes, barely masked by her perfume. Her tone was clipped, her shoulders tense. "She was here, but she wasn't present. You've been busy lately?" Mark said quietly, his voice calm, measured. His words weren't an accusation, just an observation, but they made her stiffen. She didn't look at him. "You know how work is." He nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving her. Inside, a storm raged, anger, heartbreak, betrayal, but he refused to give her the satisfaction of an outburst. Silence, he realized, could cut deeper than shouting ever could. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, her fingers fiddling with the strap of her purse. For a fleeting second, her eyes met his, and in them, Mark saw something flicker: fear, guilt, recognition that he knew more than he let on, but she looked away just as quickly, retreating into shallow excuses. "I'm tired. I'll head to bed." Mark leaned back in his chair, his jaw tight, his hands hidden under the table so she wouldn't see them shake. He let her go without another word. Silence was his weapon now, and it was already unraveling her. 2 nights later, Mark's worst fears solidified into reality. It was late, too late for Sarah to be arriving home from work. Mark sat in the dimly lit living room, the clock ticking loud enough to match the thudding of his heart. He heard the crunch of tires on gravel and froze. Through the curtain, he saw her car pull into the driveway. Relief almost touched him, until the passenger door opened. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered. His presence filled the night like a shadow Mark couldn't escape. Sarah laughed as she climbed out, her voice soft and warm, the kind of laugh she hadn't shared with Mark in years. The stranger reached for her waist, his hand settling there with ease, as though it belonged. Sarah leaned into him without hesitation, her body language intimate, comfortable. Mark's chest constricted, his breath caught somewhere between rage and heartbreak. For a second, he thought about storming outside, shouting, demanding, unleashing everything building inside him, but he didn't. Instead, he reached for his phone. His fingers trembled, but his grip tightened as he opened the camera. Click, the shutter sound cut through the quiet night. On the screen, their betrayal was frozen forever, her smile, his touch. The intimacy stolen right from Mark's hands, the photo burned into him like a scar. Undeniable and permanent, Mark sank onto the couch, his phone slipping from his trembling fingers onto the cushions beside him. His body felt heavy, hollow. The house seemed colder, emptier, as though even the walls mourned with him. Every tear he had been holding back finally fell, silent but unstoppable. There was no denial left, no excuses to make. What he had feared in whispers was now screaming truth. His marriage was over. The next morning, Mark woke with eyes swollen from a night of tears, but a mind strangely clear. The storm inside him had burned itself out, leaving only quiet resolve. He walked into the kitchen and placed the printed photo on the counter. The image spoke louder than any words could. Sarah in her red dress, smiling, leaning into another man whose hand rested on her waist. No explanations, no excuses, just truth. Mark didn't bother writing a note. He didn't need to. When Sarah came home, she would see it. She would know. He picked up his jacket and stepped outside. The autumn air was crisp, biting against his skin, but it felt cleaner than the air inside that house. His heart still ached, but his steps were steady. For years, he had been trying to prove he was enough. For years, he had given everything, hoping she would finally see him. Now he understood. Real strength wasn't in begging someone to stay. It was in finding the courage to walk away. And here's the truth. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to fight for someone who's already let go. It's to fight for yourself. Walking away doesn't mean weakness. It means you finally realized your worth doesn't depend on another person's validation. If you've ever been told you're not enough, remember this: love built on disrespect will always crumble. But self-respect? That's unshakable. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear these words. Because sometimes the hardest heartbreak carries the most powerful lesson that you were always enough.